It was a crisp November evening in 1987, and the Denver night sky stretched wide and dark above the airport. Captains James, Jim, Holloway, and Robert, Bobby Grant, both veteran pilots with decades of experience, arrived at the hangar earlier than usual for their pre-flight checks on Flight 231. The airport was quiet, almost unnaturally so. Usually, the hum of machinery, the clatter of carts, and the chatter of night staff filled the hangar. But tonight, it was eerily silent. The fluorescent lights above cast long, harsh shadows across the polished floors, and the faint smell of jet fuel hung in the air. Jim laughed nervously at the quiet, brushing it off as the calm before another routine flight. But Bobby's eyes lingered on the far corner of the hangar, as if he sensed something lurking just out of sight. Their pre-flight inspection began normally, the way it always did. Jim meticulously checked the engine instruments, while Bobby moved through the aisles of the hangar, examining the landing gear and hydraulic systems. The two men talked in low, casual tones, joking about the cold and the long night ahead. But there was a subtle tension in the air, an unspoken unease neither wanted to acknowledge. The shadows seemed darker in certain corners, and at one point, a faint metallic echo reverberated through the empty hangar. Both men paused, listening, but the sound never repeated. As they reached the cockpit, the chill in the air grew sharper. Bobby rubbed his hands together, feeling an inexplicable draft that seemed to come from nowhere. Jim noticed it too, and the hair on his arms stood on end. Their footsteps sounded unusually loud on the concrete floor, almost as if the hangar itself were amplifying their presence. Jim's flashlight beam swept across the polished panels, glinting off dials and switches, while Bobby shone his on the hangar walls, scanning for any irregularity. Everything appeared normal, too normal, almost unnervingly so. The last thing captured on the hangar security cameras was the two pilots walking toward the private door that led deeper into the hangar, clipboards in hand, their jackets pulled tight against the cold. They paused for a moment near the door, as if listening to something beyond the camera's view, then disappeared into the shadows. Not a sound of a door closing, not a hint of movement afterward. The cameras continued to roll, recording nothing but the empty expanse of the hangar, as if Jim and Bobby had dissolved into the air itself. By midnight, the hangar was empty, and the airport staff who had been monitoring the security feeds were confused and alarmed. The pilots' personal belongings, wallets, keys, flight logs, remained neatly in the break room. The security logs confirmed no one had entered or exited the hangar after the pilots disappeared, and every sensor reported normal activity, yet something was off. Investigators would later note that the temperature near the private hangar door was inexplicably lower than the surrounding area, as if some unseen force had absorbed the warmth around it. The sense of foreboding that Jim and Bobby had felt that night lingered, and nobody knew then that a mystery had just begun, one that would remain unsolved for decades. As dawn broke over Denver International Airport, the full scale of the disappearance became alarmingly clear. Security personnel, airport staff, and law enforcement were in a state of disbelief. Experienced pilots had vanished without a trace from a locked hangar. The airport went into lockdown, and a massive search operation began immediately. Officers combed every inch of the hangar using flashlights, sniffer dogs, and thermal imaging cameras. Yet the search yielded nothing. The dogs, usually reliable in tracking human scent, froze at the hangar entrance and refused to proceed. It was as if some invisible barrier had swallowed the pilots whole. Airport management called in all available personnel. Every corner of the terminal, maintenance areas, and surrounding tarmacs were inspected. Helicopters flew overhead, scanning the grounds, while officers questioned night staff who had worked the shift. Everyone claimed they hadn't seen Jim or Bobby after their routine checks. Security footage, when reviewed frame by frame, only showed the pilots walking toward the private hangar door before disappearing. No struggle, no unusual activity, no hint of foul play. Even the elevator and service corridors showed no one moving. It was as though the men had walked into another dimension. Meanwhile, frantic family members were contacted and arrived at the airport in disbelief. Spouses and close friends insisted the pilots would never just vanish. Jim and Bobby were meticulous, disciplined, and dedicated to their work. The sight of their personal belongings, wallets, flight logs, keys, still neatly arranged in the break room, made the disappearance even more disturbing. There were no signs of panic, no indication they had left voluntarily. The tension in the air was palpable. Whispers of kidnapping, foul play, and even something supernatural began circulating among staff and family alike. The local media quickly caught wind of the story, amplifying the suspense and fear. Headlines screamed, "Two airline pilots vanish without a trace in Denver." Aviation experts speculated openly on live television about what could have happened, ranging from criminal abduction to mysterious scientific experiments. The airport's reputation was suddenly under scrutiny, and a sense of paranoia settled over everyone involved. Employees recalled strange anomalies from the night before: flickering lights, unexplained drafts, and faint metallic noises. Details that now seemed ominous in hindsight. Authorities brought in federal investigators and aviation specialists, but the hangar remained a sealed enigma. Engineers confirmed that the doors were locked from the inside and that there were no hidden exits. Every sensor, every camera, and every motion detector had recorded nothing unusual except the disappearance itself. The air seemed heavier near the private door, and instruments measured slight temperature fluctuations that could not be explained. As investigators stepped back, baffled and frustrated, a chilling realization began to take hold. The pilots had not merely gone missing. They had vanished under conditions that defied logic, leaving behind only questions and an unsettling sense of foreboding. Almost immediately after the disappearance, theories began to circulate like wildfire. Airport staff, family members, and investigators struggled to make sense of what had happened, and in the vacuum of facts, speculation thrived. Some suggested a shadowy organization might have been watching the pilots, abducting them for reasons unknown. Jim and Bobby, with their decades of aviation experience and knowledge of restricted air routes, could have been seen as valuable assets or dangerous liabilities. The idea of government involvement spread quickly, whispered in break rooms and local bars alike. Others proposed more unconventional explanations. Some pilots and night staff spoke of experimental aircraft that might have been hidden in the depths of the hangar, machines capable of traveling in ways that defied the laws of physics. According to these theories, Jim and Bobby may have inadvertently stumbled upon something secret, something powerful, and become trapped or taken. Such speculation, while dismissed publicly by authorities, added layers of intrigue and fear to the narrative, giving the disappearance a sense of cosmic or technological horror. Paranormal explanations quickly gained traction, especially among the more superstitious staff. People reported hearing faint whispers or low metallic clangs coming from the hangar long after the pilots vanished. Some claimed they saw fleeting shadows moving against the concrete walls, though no one could catch a clear image on camera. A few described the feeling of vertigo or sudden dizziness near the sealed wall, as if reality itself was warping. These accounts, dismissed as imagination by some, became frighteningly consistent, leaving investigators with an uncomfortable sense that something unseen lingered behind the hangar doors. Conspiracy theorists took the story even further. Rumors spread about secret government experiments supposedly conducted at Denver International Airport in the 1980s, testing teleportation or time manipulation technology. The pilot's disappearance became fodder for late-night radio shows and tabloid articles, with every new theory seeming stranger than the last. UFO enthusiasts also weighed in, pointing to the unexplained flashes of light reported that night and the odd warmth readings near the sealed wall. The mix of high-tech speculation and supernatural claims blurred the lines between reality and imagination, fueling the mystery even further. Despite endless investigation, no theory could be confirmed. Every search, every interview, every scan of the hangar came up empty. Yet the disappearance refused to fade from memory. Families, colleagues, and aviation experts were haunted by the thought that Jim and Bobby had vanished into something beyond human comprehension. And the sealed hangar wall, looming silently in the shadows, became the center of an enigma that would baffle authorities for decades. A wall that held secrets no one could yet explain. The sealed wall in the hangar quickly became the focal point of everyone's fear and fascination. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, just a concrete barrier reinforced with steel beams, installed during renovations years before. But those who spent time near it swore there was something unnatural about the structure. Engineers reported that their instruments sometimes malfunctioned. When pointed at it, lights flickered inexplicably, and even the air temperature seemed to drop near the wall. Staff, who were accustomed to the hangar's normal hum, described an eerie silence surrounding that corner, a stillness that felt alive. Some maintenance workers claimed to feel pressure on their chests when they approached the wall, as though invisible hands were pushing against them. Others described hearing faint noises, almost like soft scratching or murmuring, coming from inside the concrete. Security cameras occasionally captured subtle distortions, blurs or shadows that seemed to move independently of anyone in the hangar. Pilots who had been friends with Jim and Bobby avoided the area altogether after dark, citing a gnawing feeling of dread they couldn't explain. The wall, once ignored, had become an entity in itself, commanding attention and fear. Stories about the wall spread quietly among airport staff. One night janitor reported hearing a whisper calling his name while cleaning near the sealed section. A technician said his tools inexplicably fell off a shelf when he tried to work on that side of the hangar. Even those who did not witness anything firsthand were unnerved by the pervasive sense of something hidden, something waiting behind the solid concrete. The wall had become more than a structural partition. It was a barrier between reality and an unknown, a silent guardian of a mystery that refused to reveal itself. Over the years, the wall gained a reputation that was almost mythical. New hires were warned not to tamper with it. Rumors claimed that Jim and Bobby were trapped behind it, though there was no way to prove it. Others whispered of portals, strange dimensions, or time anomalies. insisting that the pilot's disappearance had somehow been absorbed into whatever lay beyond the concrete. Every official investigation came up empty, and yet the wall's presence alone was enough to make even the most skeptical employee pause and feel a chill down their spine. Despite decades of neglect and avoidance, curiosity never completely died. Engineers occasionally tested the wall with advanced scanning equipment, only to find anomalies that defied explanation. Empty spaces that appeared solid, temperature fluctuations that made instruments spike, and vibrations that registered without any discernible cause. The hangar had become a house of secrets, and the wall was its heart, silent and foreboding, holding a truth that no one had yet dared to uncover. Every glance at it reminded those who dared approach that the pilot's fate was tied to it, and that the mystery was far from over. Fast forward to 2023, decades after the pilots vanished, and Denver International Airport had undergone major renovations. A team of engineers was tasked with reinforcing older hangars, and one crew stumbled upon something that immediately caught their attention. The sealed wall, long thought to be a standard structural barrier, revealed subtle irregularities. Under their scanning equipment, X-ray and sonar imaging suggested a cavity inside, an empty space that should not have existed. The discovery sent a chill through the team. After all, decades of inspections had never revealed anything unusual. Word of the anomaly quickly reached airport management, who authorized a cautious investigation. Specialized drones equipped with cameras and thermal sensors were deployed to probe the interior of the wall. Almost immediately, the engineers noticed strange readings, tiny fluctuations in temperature, faint electromagnetic disturbances, and shadows moving against the wall's interior surface. Every new measurement defied explanation. The hangar, once considered just a building, now felt like a living, breathing entity holding its secrets close. Journalists and thrill seekers soon swarmed the airport, eager to document the story. Social media buzzed with speculation. Had the mystery of Jim and Bobby's disappearance finally been solved? The engineers documented every step carefully, capturing high-definition images and thermal videos. But the evidence only deepened the unease. Some cameras picked up fleeting flashes of movement inside the wall cavity, while others recorded inexplicable cold spots. Even the most skeptical experts began to question reality itself, as the wall seemed to resist every attempt to understand it. As the wall was slowly and carefully dismantled section by section, subtle auditory phenomena began to emerge. Team members reported faint scratching, low murmurs, and occasional metallic clangs emanating from within the sealed space. Tools dropped without explanation, flashlights flickered, and some felt as though invisible hands brushed against their arms. The tension inside the hangar was nearly unbearable. Even seasoned engineers and security personnel admitted to feeling an uncanny presence, an awareness that someone or something was observing their every move. Despite these eerie developments, the team pressed on, driven by both curiosity and duty. Each section removed brought the cavity into clearer view, revealing glimpses of objects that appeared carefully arranged, yet unfamiliar. The air seemed heavier, charged with static and anticipation. Whispers of Jim and Bobby's names were carried on the wind through cracks in the concrete, almost as if the wall itself was alive, warning or perhaps inviting those who dared approach. Every step forward only intensified the mystery, leaving everyone involved with a chilling sense that they were about to uncover something far beyond ordinary comprehension. When the final sections of the wall were carefully removed, the engineers were met with a sight that froze them in disbelief. Behind the reinforced concrete lay a hidden chamber, perfectly preserved, almost untouched by time. Inside sat a cockpit, its panels pristine, its instruments seemingly active despite having been sealed away for 36 years. Jim and Bobby's personal items were arranged meticulously, flight logs stacked neatly, keys and wallets placed exactly where they had been last seen, and even their jackets hung over the seats, as though someone had carefully returned them. The chamber looked more like a museum exhibit than the site of a decades-old disappearance. As cameras and lights were positioned to capture the scene, subtle anomalies began to emerge. Instruments on the cockpit panel flickered with activity, displaying coordinates that no one recognized. Some dials spun in ways that defied mechanical explanation, and the radio emitted low, intermittent static punctuated by faint, almost inaudible whispers. Engineers leaned closer, straining to make sense of it, but the sound was indecipherable. Sometimes a voice calling out for help, sometimes an eerie, mechanical hum. Every second spent in the chamber amplified the tension, leaving the team on edge as if the room itself were alive. The atmosphere in the hangar grew increasingly surreal. A cold draft rolled through the chamber, yet the surrounding hangar remained normal. Lights dimmed and brightened unpredictably, and shadows danced across the walls in ways that didn't match any light source. Team members reported sudden feelings of vertigo, headaches, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Even the most skeptical engineers admitted they felt a strange pull toward the cockpit, a sense that something within the chamber was trying to communicate or perhaps lure them deeper. Forensic and aviation experts were called in, each struggling to reconcile what they were seeing. The cockpit's design and equipment matched the models from 1987 exactly, yet the way it had been preserved seemed impossible. Time appeared frozen within the sealed wall. Flight logs, though decades old, were crisp and legible. Handwriting remained sharp and unaltered. It was as if the pilots themselves had been momentarily paused, existing somewhere between presence and absence, alive but unreachable, trapped in a space that defied all laws of physics and human understanding. Even more unsettling was the sense that the cockpit was not entirely empty. Some team members swore they felt fleeting movements from the seats, shadows that vanished the moment they blinked, and the occasional sensation of someone breathing nearby. Cameras caught distortions in the air, tiny but consistent, as though the reality inside the chamber was subtly bending. The wall, once a simple barrier, had become a threshold to something unknown, an impossible space that preserved both the past and a lingering presence of Jim and Bobby. Every person present sensed the weight of the unanswered question, how could this cockpit have remained untouched for decades, and why had the pilots disappeared inside it without leaving a trace? Even after the cockpit was discovered, the mystery of Jim and Bobby's disappearance remained unsolved, and the hangar was filled with an atmosphere of unease. Experts examined every inch of the hidden chamber, but nothing explained how the pilots could have been sealed behind a concrete wall for 36 years without aging, deteriorating, or leaving any sign of struggle. The instruments, the logs, the personal items, everything remained unnaturally preserved. Scientists, pilots, and engineers alike could only shake their heads, realizing that whatever force had claimed the pilots had done so in a way that defied both logic and time. Family members and friends visited the site, desperate for answers. Some claimed they felt the presence of Jim and Bobby, reporting sudden chills, fleeting shadows, or the whisper of familiar voices echoing through the hangar. Others broke down, overwhelmed by the idea that the pilots might still exist somewhere, trapped, aware, yet unreachable. The emotional toll was immense, and even those who had long moved on were drawn back to the airport by the haunting possibility that their loved ones were not gone, but suspended in a reality beyond comprehension. The aviation world was shaken. Speculation ran rampant, both in official circles and online forums. Some experts argued that Jim and Bobby had accidentally stumbled into a temporal anomaly, a phenomenon that preserved them outside normal time. Others believed the wall itself was a kind of living trap, a doorway to a parallel dimension that human science could never penetrate. UFO theorists, conspiracy buffs, and paranormal enthusiasts all added their own interpretations, but every explanation seemed as impossible as the next. The story became a legend whispered among pilots and airport staff as a chilling warning about forces beyond human understanding. Even modern investigations revealed strange, inexplicable occurrences. Sensors near the wall continued to spike with energy readings that had no scientific basis. Shadows appeared on cameras where no one stood. Engineers and investigators reported brief moments of disorientation, dizziness, and a sense of being watched. Some claimed to hear footsteps pacing behind the sealed hangar, soft metallic echoes, and low murmurs that vanished when anyone approached. It was as if the pilot's presence lingered, tethered to the wall, an invisible thread connecting the past to the present in a way no one could unravel. Despite decades of study, surveillance, and speculation, no one has ever determined the ultimate fate of Jim and Bobby. The hangar now stands partially sealed again, a silent sentinel guarding the secret it has held for decades. Every night the wind sweeps through the airport, carrying whispers of two pilots walking just beyond perception, eternally searching for a way out. Visitors and staff alike are reminded that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, and that the truth, whatever it may be, lurks just beyond the wall, waiting, watching, and keeping its secret for as long as it chooses.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.